Hello, Jeannie. I'm looking at week 6 assignments. You have posted both already, so I'll go ahead and look at assignment 1 and 2. Um, it looks like you tried both the HDR and Pano exercises, so that's terrific. You only needed to do one, but doing both is absolutely fine. So for these, you were asked to shoot 5 to 9 bracketed images using full stops for the HDR and 5 to 9 images to use in a pano. And here I have, looks like the HDR images open. So right away from the screenshot, I can see these appear to be bracketed using full stops. You've added keywords and created the collection. That's terrific. And there's a very good range of exposures. One thing you could keep in mind in the future, if you're interested in doing more HDR photography, that plus to minus range that was recommended is really a guideline. What you really want to shoot for is an accurate exposure in the shadow tones and an accurate exposure in the highlight tones. It never fails. The dogs start going nuts when I start recording. Sorry about that. In any case, what I noticed right off the bat here is that perhaps this darkest exposure isn't necessarily needed. We have all the detail we need in the highlights by about the 4th or 5th image. But in this first image, where we have the most detail in the shadow area, basically the foreground, it still could have a bit more. So if you were to do it again, I'm not suggesting do it again in this case at all, but if you were to use HDR again in the future for something like a sunset, you might have gone a few stops higher exposure, for example, 1 second and 2 seconds. And I do see here that it goes from half a second to quarter of a second, 8th to 15th, 30th, 60th, and 1/25th. So that's exactly correct. That all looks great. For the pano, it looks like you were very ambitious and shooting 15 images, a good amount of overlap in each. This will result in a very, very large, high-resolution pano. I'm not sure yet whether you used Photoshop or Lightroom to process this, but either one, I'm sure it would be quite taxing to process, or perhaps actually it looks like you shot 2 sets here actually. Sorry about that. The first 8 and then the next 7. I see you flagged the ones you're intending to use. Right. The exposures look consistent here. All right, I have not looked at the processed images yet. And let's see. For the HDR, you went ahead and renamed that. Okay, so here is the contact sheet, the screenshot. Go ahead and open this. All right, so it looks like you chose Lightroom to process this. And here's the end result, which I think looks good overall. It's very close to image 2 in the original images. You may have lost a bit of the vibrance and so forth in the sky area and those particular colors, and it might actually benefit from a little more exposure and detail in the bottom area here. It's really an imperfect process. It looks like you made many adjustments to this afterwards as well. I see a whole list of adjustments there. Right. So here I'm wondering if this was the preview, what Lightroom merged. It looks a bit dark overall, so that might be the cause of you making all the adjustments afterwards. Again, if you do HDR again, I encourage you to try out Photoshop as well. HDR in Lightroom is a bit of a newer process than Photoshop's engine for it. And then also, if you find it's too dark like this and you're not really going to be benefiting from the darkest exposures, for example, you could try, for example, just these first 4 images and see how that turns out. Okay. Here, the exported JPEG looks very good. And here is the pano. So here's the contact sheet with the 7 images used and the final pano. Looks great. Very small on the contact sheet, of course, because it's so wide. Looks like you used Lightroom for this as well, with cylindrical, which is a fine choice. I find cylindrical really beneficial when you have vertical lines and buildings and so forth involved. It looks like it's slanting down to the right just a little bit here, and you did a really nice job cropping that and bringing out a lot of that detail in the sky and the color and the vibrance. Looks really beautiful. Right. So I don't think I see the overall pixel size here. I do appreciate you lowering the pixel size to 2000. I imagine with that many images, it was well above 10,000 pixels and a very large file. Okay, so really wonderful job with both of these, and I hope you enjoyed it and that you have a great week. Bye.